Hello again, Misfits, and welcome to another 1-minute review. And this time we're taking a look at Star Wars Deckbuilding Game. Now, we had the opportunity to play this recently, and we loved it. You've probably seen maybe one of our other videos if you paid attention to the channel. We did an actual playthrough of it. We've played it quite a lot more since then. Right, Misfit Tom? We played it quite a lot more since then. We played a lot of it. Yeah, we love this game. And I'm going to talk about it here for a minute for those that maybe haven't watched the video, haven't seen it. So this is aptly named the deck building game. Very generic name, but it works. It is Star Wars themed, obviously, which, as anybody who knows me, is right up in my alley. I mean, I am a Star Wars through and through. And so I was like super stoked about this. I was a little, I won't lie, I was a little disappointed to find out it was a two-player only game. Not that I'm against two-player only games. I play a lot of them, but I was kind of looking something more in the vein of DC Deck Builder or Marvel Legendary, where you have like a whole campaign and maybe even co-op-y type. They went the route more of kind of, and everybody compares this when they talk about the games like Star Realms or one of these other games where you're kind of versing someone else. But I think that does it an injustice because this has a lot more nuance than those games in a lot of ways. So first off, it is a deck building game, so you have 10 cards to start out with. You have your basic cards and you draw 5 every round. On these cards, you have different symbols, of course. One is buying, which is what you use to buy from the middle, but you also have an attack value on some of these cards. And you also have a force symbol on some of these cards, which usually out of the gate, I don't believe there's many cards that have the force symbol, although it is on some of the text of the cards, a little force symbol here. And that plays a part in the game too. I'll get to that in a minute. So the most obvious deck builder thing is you have your roll of deck building cards. You have your generic stack of generic cards you can buy. Now, you can buy from the cards in the middle and they have a point value, and you add up your points to see what you can buy. However, you can only buy cards from either your faction or from the neutral faction, which I like a lot. One of the things I think that broke a little immersion with some of those other games, including Star Realms, is that you could buy any card from the lineup, which was kind of cool in a way because you could kind of pick and choose and really deck build. But it did kind of break it down where if I'm buying from several different factions and trying to mishmash them together. In this, you can't do that. You're buying Rebel. If you're Rebel, you're buying Empire. If you're Empire, and you have your smattering of neutral cards in between. It makes buying a little easier. This can create some problems, though, in the fact that sometimes you have a ton of Rebel stuff out or a ton of Empire stuff out, and you're kind of stuck. You're like, okay, there is a solution, a little bit of a solution for that, though. Any of the character cards, mind you, you do have capital ships in it as well. I'll get to those later. But any of the character cards can be gotten rid of. So what you do is you add up your attack power on your cards, and the cards for the other faction are facing the opposite way from you. And you have a number on those cards, and as long as you can pay that number, basically it's like you're taking them out. So like Chewbacca has a number here of 4. You take those cards out when you have enough attack, you get rid of the card, you discard it from the lineup, thereby getting rid of a card your opponent can get, also replacing it with a card that can potentially be yours, and on top of that, it gives you a reward for doing so. So that creates a really, really cool mechanic because you're almost like in a literal conflict. You're denying people cards, you're denying your foe cards, and you're also getting a reward out of it furthering your own goals. And especially in the early game, that comes into play a lot because as long as you can build up power, you're constantly trying to get rid of cards that your opponent, you don't want your opponent to have. As you learn more strategy later on, you learn that it's not always best to just kind of take out all those cards. Sometimes it's better to do other stuff, depending on the cards that are out and what strategy they're going with. And the same obviously holds true for both sides. And on top of that, you have capital ships you can get, and that's kind of where we get stuck a little bit. When there's capital ships, you have a bunch of capital ships come out. They can be either faction or neutral as well, but you can't get rid of them. Normally, you can't get rid of them with the normal attack power. They just sit out. And sometimes I've seen a glut where you have a bunch of capital ships out and it's like, I'm stuck, I can't do anything. And there are certain cards that can get rid of cards in the lineup, but they're few and far between. And usually they are located on your bases. Bases are how you win the game. Now, the attack power is also used to attack people's bases, attack the other faction's bases, I should say. It has an attack value and or a health value. This builds up, this adds up over time. So you don't have to take it out all at once like you do in some other games. Basically have these little tokens that you put on the cards, and as you do damage, it kind of stacks up. So you don't get this whole problem of trying to meet a certain number before you can get anywhere. It just adds up and adds up and adds up. And that creates kind of a race because somebody can just start dumping damage and dumping damage. Well, capital ships kind of offset that. When you get a capital ship, the capital ships basically park in front of the planets. And I got one right here. And these capital ships park right in front of the planets. And these capital ships are kind of like a permanent card that stay out. And they have a health value as well. And you can buy them from the lineup when they come out. And basically what they do is their health value has to be chewed through before they get to the planet. Basically, that's like almost like a blockade of the planet. So it basically adds health to your planet. Now, when these get taken out, they're put in your discard pile, so they have a chance to come out again for that planet, or if that gets taken out, your next planet. And the goal is to take out three of opponents' planets. Now, you actually have a list. You actually have a stack of planets. The interesting thing is, of course, part of your strategy is you get to choose what planets you want to put out after the last one's destroyed. Now, they have lower health and higher health planets. I tend to lean towards the higher health planets. However, they incentivize the lower health planets by usually giving you a lot of moolah, usually a free card, like you could nab something out of the lineup, which could highly benefit you if you get a high value card, say this Millennium Falcon. That might be worth you to take a hit on hit points because you're going to have a Millennium Falcon card in your deck. So they kind of incentivize the lower health point cards as compared to the higher health point cards. That I find in practice is fair to middling, I will say, as far as strategy goes. I always find it more valuable to take the higher health point cards because even the higher health point cards some of them have really, really good abilities anyway. So I think they have to maybe fine tune or get some more cards out for that because like I'll always take, I don't know about you, I will always take like higher health value point cards, maybe a point or two less, but like I see no reason to take like the lowest health value cards, even if it gives me a free card. But I could be wrong. My strategy varies from yours and I tend to play the same people. So maybe I'll run into somebody who takes lower health point and it pays off for them. Last bit about this game is there's a force track. Now rebels start out fully in the force at the start of the game. And what that means is when you're fully on the side of this track with the force, you get a +1 resource every round. So rebels start out getting extra resources, which is nice for them. As either player gets force points, it moves the track back and forth. So if I was the Empire and I got a couple force points, it'd move this forward. Now, that's important because some of these cards get spiffs. Like they'll say one with the force, and I got one right here. Actually, I don't have one right here. Let me see if I could find one real quick. Where is me here? Blah, 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 blah. But it'll say one with the force. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. While the force is with you, not one with the force. There's so many force sayings. But while the force is with you. And what that pertains to is that the meter, this marker, is on your side. If it's on your side, even if it's not all the way at the end, you're not one with the force is with you. If it's in the middle, though, it's neutral and neither side has the force. But as you see, Chirrut here gives you 2 force, but it says while the force is with you, he gains 2 attack. So while you have force, he's getting a 2 attack and 2 force points, which is pretty powerful. So that kind of creates a little bit of a tug of war. I found that aspect is actually really cool. You can, I want to say you can't really ignore it entirely. Like in some games, it really helped the other player out. So it's really not something you're going to outright ignore. You could try to. I did one game and it kind of hurt. So it's not something you can entirely ignore. Now, getting to my review, because that's literally the whole game in a nutshell right there. It bears a lot of resemblance to a lot of other deck building games. And like I said, you'll see other people compare it to Star Realms and stuff. This takes the concept and I think elevates it. Honestly, it elevates it quite a bit. It's kind of its own thing and I love it for that. I love the theme. Everything's on point. FFG uses some of has the best art for Star Wars. And true, you might see some recycled art from their other Star Wars stuff. It doesn't matter. Their art is always stellar. They have the best artists in the biz, especially when it comes to Star Wars, and it's just perfect. My review after playing it, and as much as we played it and we started playing it, I love this game, and I'm going to stick with the 5, but I'm going to put a little caveat on there. Okay, I love this game. We had a ball with it. The weakness in this game lies in the fact that it needs an expansion, and FFG. I think is kind of one that is really good at kind of whetting your appetite with stuff and wanting you to get more. But you got to figure this entire deck is comprised of Rebel, Empire, and neutral cards. So most games, you're going to see a lot of your cards. Now, you might not get down to the bottom of the deck, but in a couple games, pretty much you're going to see Darth Vader and, Admiral Piet and all this other stuff really quick. And the strategies that encompass it are going to kind of get very samey. And it's gonna vary depending on the cards that come out, but you're gonna kind of run into a very similar strategy after a while, and you're gonna see the same cards and to know what you get. When we started out playing, you were excited to see what was coming out, right? You're like, cool, I want to see what Darth Vader does. I want to see Luke does. But like any other game, And in this game, a little bit of a shorter time, you're going to run through a lot of your stuff. It's kind of like Outer Rim. If you ever play Outer Rim, you're going to see almost everything there is to see in like, 3-4 games or so. And then you're just going to kind of be doing it again. The game itself, that's a testament to how good this engine is that it's just fun. It's just fun. I love the back and forth. I love the concept of this game. It plays fast. I would still like to see a 4-player, a larger version of it, but like some FFG stuff, you have to buy another box because you can do a teams game, but you got to buy another box to have a teams game, and it has its own rules with it. It wasn't, I don't think, really designed for it. Maybe they have a really, I could be wrong though. We don't have a second box yet to try it out. But this feels like it's made definitely for 2-player, and it's tight for 2-player. But so yeah, 5 stars. This game is great if you like deck builders, if you want a 2-player game, if you like just anything Star Wars. It's not hard to recommend this wholeheartedly to anybody. It's not a huge price point. This game is a solid 2-player game. Really the only cons are, again, it's only a 2-player game, so it's not gonna handle your big game nights or anything like that in any way. And that's not necessarily knocking it down a peg because of it, but it does limit its exposure, you know what I mean? It limits what you're going to be, when you're going to be able to play this, perhaps. And the other thing is just the other tilde, the little star in the corner is, again, it already needs, like, I already want more cards. And people have already noticed there's a lot of major characters missing from this. Obviously, Palpatine and just some stuff that you're like, well, you could have had it in this, you know what I mean? But obviously, we're going to have an inevitable expansion box that comes out, and honestly, I'm going to be along for the entire ride, but it needs to come out like sooner than later. I think they don't want to, like, I'm a little bitter after the Outer Rim thing, I will say, because I love Outer Rim. It was one of my favorite games by theirs, but how long did it take them to get an expansion out? I get there's a lot more play.
A year plus.
Oh no, it was more than a year. It was a while. It was, I think, a couple years. Somebody do the math and you can check for me if you want, but it felt like forever for that expansion to come out. It was more than a year. It was a couple years at least. It took way too long to get that out, and it was like, that game was already dusted by then. It was like, okay, that got us back into it. But hopefully, it's a card game. Hopefully, they'll be able to get this one out and keep that cycle going, kind of like with their LCGs, maybe just spit one out every 6 months or something like that, and I will be all there all day long, and I'm super excited. Add another faction into, that's another thing I could, but this is a first effort, obviously, so I can't knock it for that, but I would love to see, wouldn't you love to see, like I know they have neutral in here, but like a bounty hunters faction, like a scum faction.
I would buy that.
Obviously, you can crossbreed with how much other stuff, Mandalorian faction. There's a million places I could go. And then when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh man, this gets me excited. So get working, FFG, get working on that right now. I'm giving you a 5, but on the caveat that you start getting some more content coming down the road, because I want to play this game a lot more. But I want to see more stuff already. I'm dying to play this. So thanks again, guys, for joining me for a 1-minute review. Of course, this is 5 salty icons. You cannot go wrong with this game. Get it, play it, you will love it. I can't even really see a reason not to, even if you're not the biggest Star Wars fan. It's just a solid game engine overall. Star Realms and those games didn't even have a theme, didn't have a IP, and they're great games, and you should play them all. But yeah, just go out and get it now. It's available now, pretty much at most stores. I'm not sure if it's in Target yet, but I'm sure it'll probably be in Target at some point too. Anyway, guys, thanks again for joining me for one review. I know I rambled on, but you know me, I love rambling. It was like a couple minutes. It was maybe a couple minutes over.
So easy.
It's maybe a couple. Yeah. Thanks again, guys, and as always, don't forget to game on.